big rivalry this weekend. Iowa State in Iowa City. That's Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12. Drake, the obvious thing on the line is that this is a rivalry game. But are there broader implications here? I talked earlier today.
Keen inference. Nicely done, Spencer. Hot start.
I was thinking about the Tennessee game earlier on today's show and saying, if Tennessee doesn't beat NC State, they're not going to make the playoff. Is something like that on the line here in Iowa State?
No. What? No. Playoff implications are the least of the worries of these two teams right now. And I think that's not a bad thing, at least. Iowa State is not a playoff team, and I don't think Iowa is a playoff team either. That's not a bad thing necessarily, and I don't think that the precedent of this game is going to set whether or not these two believe they are playoff contenders. If you're Iowa State and you lose, we've got to kind of almost re-envision the playoff and where these teams sit, because you can still win the Big 12. You can still finish runner-up in the Big 12 and win 11 games and be a playoff contender. Right now, the focus for Iowa State is win the conference. The focus for anybody, Texas Tech, who just snuck past ACU, or even a team that lost this week like West Virginia, is, hey, if we win the Big 12, that all goes away and we still go to the playoff. Is that a conversation right now? No. Are there deeper implications? Yes, but the regular season itself is different than it was even last year, and Iowa State doesn't have to beat Iowa to overall be successful.
I think for Iowa in this game, it'll be an actual test of their offense. They were Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde in week one against a team who, if I said who it was, 99.99999% of my audience could not identify what city it's actually a part of. And guess what? I can't either. So 6-0 at the half, you think, oh, it's
Fargo, maybe, right? That was Iowa State. Iowa State, North Dakota, that's Fargo, right? Illinois State's in Evansville? Oh, not good. Not good. You're right. Not good.
Yeah. Not easy. Not an easy thing to do. Evansville could be right. Could very well be right. It might be wrong. I really don't know. The point is that when Iowa had only 6 points at the half, you thought, oh boy, here we go. Tim Lester didn't make a difference. It's the same old Iowa team. And then in the second half, they put up 34. And you're like, well, hey, I kind of recognize that version of Cade McNamara from his time at Michigan, leading them to Big Ten championships and college football playoff appearances. That's interesting. What do you make of the Hawkeyes' week one performance, where they stunk in the first half and they were objectively great in the second half, the way you would hope they look against an opponent of that caliber?
Yeah, honestly, Spencer, being the host of Locked On Big 12, I wouldn't have watched this game, but FanDuel exists, and I liked the Iowa team over this week. It was like 33, because I thought, hey, change offensive coordinator. The emphasis is there. You're going to have to score points, and they did score points in the second half. Cade McNamara looked like a quarterback. I don't need him to be like better than competent. He was a quarterback, and to have a running back like Caleb Johnson to score 2 touchdowns, I thought, hey, what if Iowa actually is okay on offense now? And if that's the case, we know the defense is going to be good. The problem to me is for Iowa this week, the Iowa State offense is really, really solid with Rocco Beck, to Busama, and we saw what Jalen Noel was able to do last week in the wide receiver game. They have a top 3 wide receiver room in the Big 12, which feels rare for Iowa State. We don't usually talk about their wide receiver game. They got probably a top 5-6 tight end in the conference too, and in the Big 12 at least. When it comes to facing Iowa, defense on defense, and after what Iowa State gave you holding North Dakota to 3 last week, we might see a good old-fashioned 13-7 ball game. And I still think Iowa State has the better offense than Iowa, and in a 13-7 game, you have a better chance of scoring 13 than the Hawkeyes do.
I get the sense that Vegas wants to like Iowa State more in this game, but the Hawkeyes are at home and they are a tough team to beat in front of their home crowd because, well, it's a very rowdy and rambunctious environment. So when I look at this matchup, Drake, I think the most interesting component is how does that Iowa State offense fare against the Iowa defense? Certainly there are other individual matchups you could look at, or, big unit matchups to compare, but if Iowa State's offense is able to get going, I still don't know that I trust Iowa. In spite of the second half last week against the Middle Tennessee Technical Institute or whoever they were playing, I don't know if I'm fully in the camp of I trust Iowa's offense. This is real now. if Iowa State's offense is able to get going, and that's not an easy thing to do. We know Iowa's going to play great defense. Kirk Ferentz is back. I'm sure the players will be plenty inspired along those lines. But if the Iowa State offense finds a rhythm, finds momentum, puts up 3-4 touchdowns in this game, I don't trust Iowa to be able to keep that pace.
Yeah, 24 could very well be the magic number in this game, and that's not rare for those matchups recently between Iowa State, or a matchup between Iowa and anybody. I'm looking right now at the scouting report from Pick Six Previews, and for Iowa State, they have the number 1 defensive backfield in the conference, and so Cade McNamara is going to face a much better DB unit than they did last week against Illinois A&M Tech. And part of that starts with Jeremiah Cooper. You look over at Bo Freiler, who are both first-team All Big 12 caliber DBs, and then Iowa State's also given out of the Big 12 the number 2 defensive line unit in the conference, number 8 in linebacking core, but you have 2 top units in the DBs and the D line, and for Iowa, that's your nightmare fuel, is a good or competent defense. Now, the offense for Iowa State, per Pick Six Previews, 7th in QB play with Rocco Becht, 12th the running back Abu Sama, 7th wide receiver and tight end. I have them higher rated in my own book as a couple of guys. They have 2 different All Big 12, honorable mention at least, caliber wide receivers. That bodes well for what Iowa State brings you offensively. The question is then, against an Iowa defense that's so good, can you put up that 24 points? Can you put up 21 points? You already know your defense for Iowa State's solid, and you know that Iowa's offense still has question marks. One 40-point game doesn't erase what's been a tough offensive culture over the last couple of years under Kirk Ferentz. Then it becomes, hey, can our offense do that? Can we get 21 points after last week only getting 21 against North Dakota at home?
First to 20 points probably wins the game.
Yeah, most likely.
That's been the trend in this matchup. Last year's game had a point total under 30, and Iowa's won 7 of the last 8. So let's wrap with our predictions here, Drake, to end today's show. I think this is going to be a really, really entertaining football game. One of the reasons I bring it up on today's show is it's a great matchup. I think it could just be a slugfest. Safety after fundamental football, 0 penalties as it was intended. Yeah, I mean, it could very well play out that way. Regardless, it's a rivalry. We don't get a lot of those early in the season in college football. We'll have a couple of next week out west, but I'm going Iowa in this game. This matchup has been favoring the Hawkeyes at home. I know they're a slight favorite because Iowa State has got a little bit more offensive firepower. I trust the Iowa defense to play well in front of that home crowd. I think the Iowa offense can do barely enough. Heck, the defense might even mess around and score. So I'll go Iowa 17, Iowa State 13.
Yeah, I think you probably hit the nail on the head with the under here. I don't believe this game goes over. I don't know if I love that prediction now. Yeah, it's not going to be a fun one to watch. 28% chance for Iowa State to win per ESPN, and look, they've got a better chance of winning than 28%. Also, the reason I don't love the prediction that I just gave, and I'm thinking about going back on it, is I don't know if that many points are going to get scored. Yeah, well, and in a game like this, to me, truly one touchdown is the difference. You could score 1 touchdown and win the game. 3 field goals, 1 touchdown, and congrats. You're walking out of there with a win. And I'm sure this rivalry has a trophy that I wish I knew the name of. My favorite part of this in Kinnick Stadium, tickets, lowest price, $140. So people are going to be there. The Iowa crowd is going to be there. The atmosphere is going to be good because both of these teams feel as though they'll be conference contenders at the end of the year. And both of them should be based on their returning guys. If I got to go objective here, I'm the host of Locked On Big 12. I lose nothing by picking Iowa State. I still think Iowa has the slight edge in this one, and that's because the defense, the Hawkeyes, until they bend or break, I'm going to struggle to pick against them at home. I think Iowa probably takes this one in that 17-13, 17-14 range. And Iowa State's got a chance at the end, but the Iowa defense is just that good. I'm going to need Rocco Becht to grow up real fast, real quick, and become an elite quarterback. And I need Abu Sama to do more than 36 yards, which is what he did against North Dakota in a game where they scored 21.
If Iowa State goes into Hawkeye Stadium and wins this football game and looks really good doing it, let me tell you, Big 12 title contender Josh Pate's dreams could come true. That is
Can I give you super quick?
Yes, you can.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. We have time.
If they win that game, they follow that up with Arkansas State, Houston, Baylor at home. Iowa State starts 5-0.
And ranked in the top 25.
Yeah, top 20 team, top 25 team there, and legitimate chance to make noise in the Big 12.
I think more on the line for Iowa State than Iowa in this particular game relative to my season expectations for him. Now, that has been Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks.